Have you ever wondered what it's like to live in Gran Canaria, Spain? Stay to the end and find out. Today we have our special guest, Raquel Rojas, and I'll tell you a little bit about Raquel. There's a lot to tell about Raquel, by the way. Raquel is an award winning media and TV executive with a large experience in children and family entertainment. PhD in cinematography, broadcasting, and communication at Universidad Complutense de Madrid, various audiovisual diplomas from prestigious institutions, MBA at Universidad de Barcelona, and certificate in entertainment law at New York University. Dr. Benitez has worked in a variety of academic and professional positions in the United States, Asia, Canada, and Europe. Member of the Canadian Picture Pioneers, WAWA, SGAE, and ASIFA, EGEDA, ECREA. That's a lot of letters, amongst other international audiovisual organizations. Members of the Cognitive Science Society, editorial board member of the Global Conference on Artificial Intelligence and Robotics, curriculum developer, guest speaker, and instructor in the most prestigious international universities and schools, such as Universidad Complutense de Madrid, LSU, University of Teesside in the UK, Universitat I'm going to mess this up, Balears in Spain, Universidad de Las Palmas in Spain, Centennial College in Canada, Kennedy College of Technology in Canada, Digital Media Arts School in Canada, BOSS program in Jamaica, Korea 8TIFF in Malaysia, Program de Acceleration Naranja in Costa Rica, Toronto Film School Canada, Universidad Miguel Hernandez de Leche in Spain, Humber College in Canada, University of Niagara Falls in Canada. Wow. Besides that, she's written numerous books. I won't go over all of them right now. And let's see, Raquel, tell us a little bit about you, of what I didn't cover, and tell us about how you wound up in Gran Canaria and what's going on there.
Mark, first of all, I would like to say hi to all your listeners and all the people that are with here today with us. And thank you for having me and having the opportunity of talk a little bit about something that is so dear to my heart as is Gran Canaria. I have to start saying that I was born in Gran Canaria many centuries ago. No, I'm not that old, but a while ago I was born in Gran Canaria. I spent all my childhood to until I was 19 years old. Then I went to Madrid to study, my bachelor degrees, and then I did my MBA, my doctoral thesis, etc., etc. I had been living in different countries for a long time. I had traveled many other countries, because of my passion for traveling and also because of my work. And right now I'm settled here in Niagara Falls, Canada, where I'm the associate dean of the university. And I'm really pleased to be here with you and share with everyone, my experience in Gran Canaria. Not only my experience in Gran Canaria as a person who was born there, has all her family there, and all my friends are there, but also as a member of the LGBTQ plus community.
That's great. We can't wait to dive in and find out the good news about Gran Canaria. So, and thank you for introducing yourself, Raquel. Appreciate that. Let's talk a little bit about the climate and the geography in Gran Canaria. I know it's known for a great climate. Can you describe what the weather is like all year round?
Well, we are extremely lucky in terms of the weather in Gran Canaria. I have to tell you that we don't have winters basically, but we don't have extreme temperatures either in terms of the summer. The average temperature is between 23 degrees to 25 degrees on a regular basis. In the summer, top temperature we will go like around between 27 to 30. That will be the top. And in the winter, we are talking about 20 to 21, 22 degrees. We are extremely lucky. We are geographically in a position in the parallel 28th where we have the Alisios wind, which allowed us to have a very refreshing temperatures, and non-extreme heat because we are close to the equator. But because of the position of the islands, we don't suffer from extreme heat. You have to understand that we are only 15 kilometers away from Africa and desert of Sahara. So you may think, wow, with that extreme heat, how come Gran Canaria doesn't have that extreme heat? And it's because of the Elysian winds. We are very fortunate to have that. That allow us to have a year-round stable weather where there are no peaks, no extreme storms, no snow, no nothing like that. Once in a while we do have snow on the peak of the mountain, but at the same time, you can be with the snow on the peak of the mountain, the highest mountain, Tejeda. But then at the same time, people will be swimming in the beach. So that's the reason why it's called the miniature continent, because, you can go from one extreme to the other. So, but year round, we have an amazing weather. That's the truth.
Now, us folk in the U.S., we don't go by Celsius, unfortunately. So do you happen to know what Fahrenheit
I'm not
approximately?
exactly sure in Fahrenheit, so I don't want to give the wrong information. I
Oh, that's okay.
apologize about that.
That's okay. We'll look it up. It's
All right.
probably just mild, beautiful weather.
Oh, yeah,
So,
yeah, for sure.
okay. So, did climate change impact your daily life or any outdoor activities? Have you noticed any climate change in Gran Canaria?
No, I cannot tell you, I'm trying to remember, when I was growing up there, and each time I spend time in Gran Canaria now, I don't see extreme temperatures. I don't see like torrential rains or
Or
hurricanes
flooding?
or things like that. We are extremely lucky. We never get affected by hurricanes or tornadoes or similar things. I have to say we have a very stable weather. And I do understand that there is some problems with the weather worldwide, but luckily enough, we haven't been affected by that. No.
And just to give us an idea, how large is Gran Canaria?
Gran Canaria is the third largest island of all the Canary Islands. Okay, being the first one Fuerteventura, Tenerife, and the third one Gran Canaria. Gran Canaria is the most populated island of all of it. And, we take turns with the island of Tenerife and being the capital of all the Canary Islands. 4 years is Tenerife, 4 years is Gran Canaria. In terms of length, I can't tell you exactly the length, but I can tell you that to going from the north to the south of the island, it will take you approximately 2 hours drive. It's a circular area. It's a circular island, and also only have a small peninsula on the north, and that peninsula is where the main capital, Las Palmas de Gran Canaria, is located. So it's very easy to communicate from one part of the island to the other. The transportation is fantastic, I have to say. And I want to say something that is important for those of us who like to go there and would like to visit is that the price of the gas is the cheapest in all Europe because we don't pay taxes. We don't have what is called VAT. VAT is the tax for
Yes.
certain items in Europe. We don't have VAT in the Canary Islands because we are so separate away from Europe that we have a special tax system.
Interesting. So your taxes are totally different than the mainland of Spain.
That's correct. Yes, the mainland in Spain taxes goes from 13 to 21% depending on the item that you buy. And the Canary Islands, we are talking 4%.
Wow.
It's called IHIC, it's only 4%. Basically, the IHIC, this tax, just cover what is the transportation of bringing things to the Canary Islands rather than the taxes itself. Of course, in Spain, there are some taxes that you don't pay for basic things such as bread, milk, water. The same thing happened in the Canary Islands. But in terms, if, for example, you want to buy a luxury car or you want to buy a car, buying a car there is much, much cheaper than buying a car in Spain or for that matter, in any other part of Europe.
Hmm. Interesting. It's like its own little country
Yes,
almost.
yeah, Mark, we have our own rules and our own regulations in many aspects. And the European community acknowledge that we are far away from Europe. Just for you to understand, by plane, we are 3 hours away from Madrid, which is the capital of Spain.
That's far by plane.
Yeah, it's far by plane. We are 2,500 kilometers away. That's a long distance. If
Yeah.
you're gonna go by boat, by ship, it will take you 2 days and one night. Or depending on the boat, it will be even take you 2 nights and 3 days. So yeah, I mean that's the reason why is we do have a special regime in terms of taxes and in terms of certain things. But also this thing, I just want to be sure that I'm explaining myself properly, doesn't give us a sense of isolation because Canary Islands is a tourist destination. It's a paradise for many people. We have a lot of tourists that come from all over the world, mainly from Europe, mainly from Scandinavia, Norway, Sweden, Finland, Denmark, also a lot from Germany and from the UK. And we have tons of friends who decided to establish themselves in the Canary Islands just because of the benign weather, some other aspects that I'm sure we will be discussing in this conversation with you.
Great, great. Okay. As far as geography, so it's close to Africa. It's close to Africa,
It is
correct?
it is very close to Africa. Just to give you an example, when Christopher Columbus made his trip to America, the last point that he touched was actually the Canary Islands. So he went from Spain to the Canary Islands, and from the Canary Island came to Cuba, Puerto Rico, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because the Canary Islands are located in the middle point between Africa, Europe, and America. This is fantastic in a sense that the connections and, for example, the airports, each island, we are 7 islands and a small island. We have 8 airports,
Wow.
international airports. So the communications are there, and you have direct flights with the most important capitals from all around the world. There is no trip that you take from Europe to, for example, to Latin America that doesn't stop in the Canary Islands as a point, a starting point for the trip to go to Latin America.
Wow. So from Gran Canaria, you can take a plane to pretty much anywhere in Europe, correct?
That's correct. Yes, any place in Europe.
And how about the US?
Yes, there are some direct flights to the U.S.,
Wow.
but there are also a lot of them that pass through Madrid or through Barcelona. I mean,
Got it.
the connection. The Gran Canaria is the second largest airport in Spain. The first one being Madrid, and the second position is between Palma de Mallorca in the Balearic Islands and Gran Canaria.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a very busy
Impressive.
airport, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'd say so. Okay. Let's get on to the cost of living and real estate. So, how does the cost of living in Gran Canaria compare to other European destinations like mainland Spain,
Oh,
Canada, where you are?
yeah. Well, the difference is huge. It's really big in a sense that the cost of living there is much lower. You can rent, just to give an example, if you want to rent an apartment, as we call it in Spanish, piso, if you want to rent one, like say 3 bedrooms, 2 washrooms, living room, kitchen with a garage attached, you will be paying like around 600 euros.
Oh my God.
That is that's nothing. If you consider that, that's nothing. And I'll give you a real example because this is what my sister is paying for that. So then, of course, the cost of living is not the same as in other parts of Europe. Is much cheaper. Obviously, there are properties that are quite expensive. You know what I'm saying? If you want a townhouse, or if you want a bungalow, or you want something like that, you may pay, I don't know, $500,000 or €500,000. But of course, that happens any place in the world, right?
Right.
I was looking to buy a house. I'm going to give you an example. I was looking to buy a house not long ago in Gran Canaria with views to the sea. Okay, it was a 3 bedroom, living room, garage, kitchen, big toilet, big washroom, and a small toilet. And the cost was 200,000 euros.
That's incredible.
Yeah,
That's so
yeah,
funny with a sea view.
with a sea view. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Ocean view or
yeah, yeah, awesome view.
wow. Something, like that here would be 3 bedrooms, I don't know, 800 and up.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that is in the U.S. But if you talk, for example, cities such as Toronto, where I used to live, in Toronto, we will be talking about $1.5 million, $2 million for a
Oh
house like
yeah.
that.
Hmm.
So just imagine the big difference. Now,
Yeah.
we do have to be aware that the euro is a very strong currency.
Yeah.
But even though so, just think 200,000 is nothing in comparison to what would you pay in other places, right?
Oh
So
yeah.
it's a big
It's very
difference.
cheap.
It's very cheap.
Yeah.
Well, cheaper than in other places, right? I mean, of course, if you want to live in a cheaper place, you can go to a small town, maybe in the mountains or something like that, and maybe find a house for 100,000, 125, 150. But I'm talking about the main capital, okay, of the island, Las Palmas de Gran Canaria.
So what's it like for retirees? Do you think or find that there are many retirees that retire in the Gran Canaria?
Yes, basically, the main population that retires in the Canary Islands are German people, a lot of Germans. They tend to live in the south of the island, not so much in the city. The south of the island has higher temperatures. Let's say that the island, like I said, is round island, and in the center of the island there is a huge mountain. And from the south of that mountain, there is no weather variation. So you will have like around 27 degrees, 30 degrees year round. So many Germans and Sweden and Norway, Norwegians and people from Finland, they like to go there because they want to have a really warm
Warm.
weather, right?
Yeah, because it's cold where they are.
Yeah, exactly. In the cities where, there will be a little more variation, as I explained before. But in the south is all the time sunny, it's all the time nice weather and all that kind of stuff. So that's where they live. And yeah, basically from those countries. We are seeing now kind of an increase of Canadians that want to establish themselves
I
in Gran
wonder
Canaria.
why.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. And for example, in the case of Canadians, it's something very interesting is the government of Canada and the government of Spain have an understanding where, for example, if you are retiring in Canada, you can make the government of Canada pay your pension plan through the Spanish government. So you will get your money in Spain. You don't have to do anything where like working with your bank here and then transferring the money or things like
Wow,
that.
that's
It
good.
works directly, right? And that's what happened in Spain. In Spain has a lot of mutual understandings with a lot of countries because we understand that we are a tourist destination and we understand that a lot of people would like to retire there.
And so, okay, so it's a special understanding between Gran Canaria themselves and those countries.
That's right.
Okay. Is there something special with the US,
At this particular
you
stage,
think?
I think there is an understanding with the US. Yes, I think there
Okay.
is. I don't
Okay.
know the full extension of it, but I think there is, yes.
Okay. So that brings us into, so we already talked about tax advantages. There are also some tax advantages for a retiree
That's
to
right.
move to Gran Canaria as opposed to mainland Spain or
That is
anywhere
correct.
else in the EU. Okay, great. So let's talk about the visa process. What's the visa process like for non-EU citizens who want to retire to Gran Canaria?
Well, I would like to divide these in three different aspects. Any European citizen, member of the European Union, can retire there, no problem whatsoever. Okay, you don't need an application, you don't need nothing. Then there is the example of the people from the United Kingdom
Yes.
who wants to retire because they left the European Union. They have a special procedure that they have to follow. Okay. And then, people from other countries, there is basically a very easy way of doing so if you prove that you have enough income to sustain yourself. In the past, they are thinking or reviving again the golden visa, where if you buy a property there, you will be able to establish yourself. In Spain, was the cost of the property has to be half a million euros. In the Canary Islands, is completely different because the cost of living is completely different. But there are many ways where you can establish yourself in the Canary Islands, and the visa process is not that complicated. Lucky enough, and I said to this in a very good way. In the past, Spain was a country that was well known because of bureaucracy and how much we like stamps and seals and
Yes.
papers and blah, 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 blah. Now, the way it is established is where, you just go to one single office, you sit in three different tables. It's a line that you do on tables. So you go on the first table, you apply, you do whatever it is, you go to the second table, you follow the procedure, you go to the third table, and when you leave the room, basically, you will have all the paperwork that is needed for you to establish yourself there. So it's a very, it's not as complicated as it sounds. And one thing that I want to mention is that in many, many institutions, you will find a lot of documentation in different languages because we are aware of the tourism, right? So not all the documentations are in Spanish. You will may find instructions in German, in Dutch, in English, in French, but the documentation itself have to be submitted in Spanish, but at least you know what you are writing and what you have to write in this particular case.
Okay. So on mainland Spain, if you're applying for a visa, you would have to go through an embassy of in the United States
Mhm,
in order to apply. Is it
mhm.
the same for Gran Canaria?
Well, there is two different ways. One way is going through the embassy, as you say, go to the embassy of Spain in Washington. And also there is a different system depending on what is your status that you want to achieve in being in Spain. And the Canary Islands, it's part of Spain, and but there are certain procedures that you can do directly in the Canary Islands.
I
You don't
see.
have to start everything from scratch at the embassy in Washington.
Got it. Got it. So it sounds like there's a little less bureaucracy there as well, as far as
Yes,
compared to the mainland.
yes, yes, yes. One
Okay.
of the beautiful things that had happened in Spain is that after we joined the European Union, before we joined the European Union, we love paperwork. I'm telling you, yes, we love paper, we love paper, we love paper. But after entering the European Union, we had to go through the standards of the European Union, and
Right.
the European Union have less paper applications, less complication things, right? The most important thing to get in Spain is the NIE. NIE is a number that is provided to you by the government of Spain. Is your identification number. That
Right. To get a bank
identification,
account.
it allows you to do absolutely everything from
Yeah.
open a bank account to open, like to apply for the healthcare system, which is a public health care system. And I don't know if your audience is aware, but Spain have one of the best public health systems in the world,
Hmm.
where literally you pay absolutely nothing for surgeries, for dental, for eyes, for absolutely nothing. You pay absolutely nothing. And there is also, for people who are interested to have their own private insurance, you have the opportunity of doing that. You pay 100 euros per month, and you can also have your private. But many, many cases, and I always say this to my friends who want to establish themselves there, is like, don't get a private one, because if you have to have, for example, a major surgery, The private institution will send you to the public
Public.
institution because the public institution is the one who has the best machines, the best tools, the best, things,
Right.
to in order to have the perform the surgery and all that kind of stuff.
Wow. So getting back to visas a little bit, they have, for retirees, they have a non-lucrative visa,
Hmm.
correct?
Hmm.
Okay. The golden visa, I believe, was just canceled by Spain in April.
Yeah,
So
but there
just
has
last
been,
month.
yeah, but Mark, what had happened is that there has been so many applications regarding the golden visa that the government of Spain, more than canceling itself, what they have said is that they have it on a standby position more than canceling completely.
Oh,
So we don't know for sure if it's going to be reestablished or if it's going to be modified or whatever it is, right? But for the government of Spain, the most important thing, because you will get a lot of things like, for example, like public healthcare, like I said,
right.
and certain things, is that you have to prove that you're able to sustain yourself,
That you're not a burden
that
to
you're
the
not a burden.
Spanish
Exactly.
economy.
And I'm going to give you an example. When I moved to Canada, for the first 3 months, in Canada, we also have a free health system.
Yes.
For the first 3 months of me staying in Canada, I didn't have health insurance. So when after 3 months, you were able to apply for that. So it's something similar in Spain. You have to prove that you're able to sustain yourself, that you're not a burden to society, and
Hmm.
then you don't have a problem at all. And that is something that I think is very important to mention, because it's as simple as that. That you
Right.
have a completely source of income all the time. And one of the best ways of doing that is what I said, is use the treaty that Spain has with so many countries, where you will get your pension plan through the government of Spain. Because then the government of Spain say, oh, hey, Mark has X amount of money every month. So you are able to prove that, right? So
Right.
this is an
Through
important
like
aspect.
your social security check
Ex- e-
or your
exactly.
pension.
Exactly. Because what happens, and these are the people who are having a hard time, is when they receive the money directly from their governments. Because, like any country, Spain wants to have as much funds as possible.
Money.
Money,
Right.
right? So they want to control the money that is entering into the country and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's understandable. And I believe they also have a digital nomad visa for those.
That is correct. And this is something that is a very interesting concept, especially if you apply to go to Gran Canaria. Gran Canaria, the government of the Canary Islands, especially in the island of Gran Canaria, has a technology development structure where if you are a digital nomad, or if you want to establish a technology company, or at least to be associated with one, your visa application is speed track. And this is a very good way of getting into the country and getting a permanent resident permit.
Are there any challenges unique to the LGBTQ community for getting visas, or do they treat everybody as equal?
Well, you have to understand that at this particular point, the two top countries in the world in terms of LGBT rights, in terms of, for example, from inheriting a will, or buying property together, or having kids together, and so on and so forth, the top countries in the world are Iceland and Spain. Spain has one of the most advanced legislations regarding the LGBT community. And we are very used, to, you have to understand that because Gran Canaria is located in this middle point in the Atlantic, where we always, I remember growing up, in my same school, in the same class, I have friends who were from India, who were from England, who were from Germany, who were from different countries. So we are very open. We have a very open society where we are used to different cultures, different ways of living, etc., etc., etc. So being a member of the LGBT community is not an issue. It's not a problem. Actually, in fact, in Gran Canaria, in the south, we have Jumbo, it's called the Jumbo Center, which
Yes.
is the largest LGBT center in Europe, where, it's like a huge mall.
I've
Imagine a
seen that
huge,
online.
yeah, imagine a huge mall where
Wow.
everything is LGBTQ plus.
Wow.
Not only that, but in Maspalomas, also in Gran Canaria, we have what is the best and the largest and the first one established drag queen festival in the world, where they choose the best drag king and the best drag queen in carnival. So what I'm trying to say is like, I think that is like any other part of the world. You have to be respectful and all that kind of stuff,
Right.
but myself, I'm a member of the community. I'm a member of the LGBTQ plus community, and I'm really looking forward for my retirement into Canary Islands, concretely in Gran Canaria. Not only because I have families and friends, but because of the weather, because of the health insurance, because of the food, because of the way of living. One of the things that I always talk with my friends is the way of living. Is that you have time to spend time not only working, if that's your goal, work, but you have time to go to the beach, to be with friends, to see, to have a coffee, to have a nice meal. It's a completely different concept of living, and that is very valuable for me. We have in Spanish something that is called sobremesa, which means that after lunch you just don't finish lunch and okay, you pay your bill and you leave. No, no, no. You have lunch, you sit, maybe you have some coffee, maybe you have a liqueur, maybe you have an ice cream, all seated in the restaurant, and maybe a lunch that it was supposed to last for 1 hour may last for 5 hours. And no one will come and say to you, hey, you have to leave because another client is coming. It's part of the culture.
It's different.
It's
It's
a
different here.
completely different completely mentality. I'm just going to give you an example. Now my brother is retired, but when he was working, he will go to work at 8 in the morning, finish at 1, and in Spain it's very normal to have 2-hour break for lunch. So he will have his lunch, then he will go to the beach, have a swim, go back to the house, have a nap, what we call siesta, and then get dressed and go to work again.
Go back to work.
So this is the kind of life that I'm talking about. Where I want to have a very easy, relaxed life, because our work and our lives in the
You
past,
work hard,
we have
so
been, yeah, you work hard, and when you reach to that age when you say, hey, I want to have an easy life. Let's put it in this way. This is my point of view anyway.
and you know what? Times change too, because I remember growing up when I first started my work and I lived in New York City and worked on Wall Street. I said to myself, God, I am so fortunate to live in a place like this in the United States, in New York City, on Wall to have a job on Wall Street. I'm just so fortunate. How do I just count my blessings. And now, as years go on, I'm like, I don't, it just changes. I would rather have the lifestyle that Europe has, that Spain has, as far as, I don't no longer work, but they take care of the people. So it's not just the work thing, they take care of family first and everything else. And there's more humanity in the culture,
You know what I like to say is that, and this is the way I say it, is that we take care of each other.
right?
And this is part of our culture. And this is part of how we are. One of the things that I noticed living in North America, I have been living in North America for 25 years already, is that everyone go and mind their own businesses. You know,
Hmm.
you do what you do and all that kind of stuff. At least here in Canada, for example, where we have such a horrible winters, people get very much isolated in the wintertime.
Hmm.
It's kind of you hibernate kind of thing.
Yes.
In Gran Canaria, it's impossible to do that because you have amazing weather. The only thing that you want to do is go out, sit in a terrace, and have a coffee.
Right.
And maybe the
I love
person,
that.
yeah, maybe the person who is sitting next to you will start a conversation with you. It's like,
Right.
hey, how are you doing? And what are you doing? Are you a tourist? Are you whatever it is, right? Because we are used to that. We are educated in that way since our childhood, to welcome people and to be communicative with people.
Yeah, it's different than here in the United States. It's
Yeah, it is.
we don't have that coffee culture.
No, 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 no. And this is something, for example, that I do miss a lot in Canada, because basically, or in North America, generally speaking, because where do you go for a coffee? You go to Starbucks, right?
Starbucks.
But that's not a coffee place. A coffee
No.
place, the way we understand in Spain, is go, you ask for a coffee. It's a real coffee, not the coffee from Starbucks. It's a real coffee,
Right.
a
Café con leche.
cappuccino or whatever. Yeah, café con leche, exactly. And you see it. And in all these places, they have newspapers, so you are able to read the newspaper for free there, or a magazine. They have free internet connection, and you are able to read, to stay there. If you want to stay 5 minutes, you stay 5 minutes. And if you want to stay 1 hour, you stay 1 hour. I have been in many, many places in the United States where they have a sign saying, patrons only can stay up to 15 minutes.
Right.
I have never seen that in the Canary Islands, and not in Gran Canaria. I have never seen that ever.
Yeah, mostly in Europe,
Yeah,
they're pretty good.
yeah,
You have to ask for your check,
exactly.
instead of, them coming over and saying, okay, time to leave. They'll never say
That,
that.
that's right. That's right. That's right. It's a question of mentality, Mark. I think it's a
Right.
question of mentality of how it's different. It's different.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. Okay. The LGBTQ community and culture. So Gran Canaria is famous for being a major LGBTQ destination. What's it like being a part of the LGBTQ community there?
I have to say, like I said, I have never faced discrimination ever in my life there. I feel free to hold hands with my partner walking down the street or going to the beach or something like that. We are very, how could I say this, very relaxed in terms of what is sexual conduct, in terms of for example, we have a lot of nudist beach where you just go and it's nudist. And you don't have to be nudist. You can go with your swimming suit if you want to, but there are areas where there are nudist areas. I mean, the sense that is very interesting because in the North American culture, sex and erotica, for example, is perceived as something that is an aggression, right?
Right.
But they are used more to guns and violence of that kind. On the contrary, the European culture is being seen in a completely different way, where guns and aggression and war and et cetera, is being seen as a huge violent thing that you don't want to even touch, right? But when it's something about sexual conduct or something like that, there's no problem whatsoever. We are very, very much open
Open mind.
in that regard. Yes, very much open in that regard. Yes, and like I said, I have never felt threatened. Never anyone turned their head to look back at me again because I was holding my partner's hand. All my friends, all my family, my colleagues at work when I was working there, everyone knew that I was a member of the community. And the same way I was invited to a function, my partner was invited to a function as well.
Hmm.
So, it's part of the nature,
I
and
remember the days, Raquel, where I'd be invited to someone's wedding or my boss's wedding, and I had to get a fake friend,
yeah,
or, well, a friend, but it was like a fake thing
right.
because I wasn't out, and it was like you can't invite your partner, so you have to invite a friend that's a female.
That's right. I hear you.
So,
Very
yeah,
sad, but it's true. It's
it is
unfortunate,
sad.
but it's true. Yeah, I know.
But now I wouldn't. I wouldn't do that now these days.
Things,
But anyway,
thank God, things have changed a lot.
yeah,
At least, although I see with some concern, if I may say so, what is
Yeah.
happening in the United States right now
Yes.
regarding the LGBT rights, and not only the LGBT rights, but many, many rights of many,
Yeah.
many people there. So,
Same here. That's why I think I'm going to learn my Spanish. So, okay. So the are there any LGBTQ neighborhoods, so to speak, with bars
Mm,
or
well,
restaurants, or is
yes,
it
yes,
scattered?
yes, yes. There are, especially in the south of Gran Canaria. Like I said, you have Jumbo, which is the largest mall for LGBT people. There you find from restaurants to sex shops to pubs to I don't know, arcades to everything. But one thing that I want to mention, and I think this is very important to mention, many cities in the world have one street. For example,
Hmm.
in Toronto, we
Right.
have Church Street, which is the main core street in the gay neighborhood,
Yes.
and where everything is permitted. In Gran Canaria, we don't have that. And the reason because we don't have that is because it's permitted everywhere. I cannot tell you, hey, go to this particular restaurant because it's LGBT. No, excuse me, all the restaurants are LGBT because it doesn't matter with
Doesn't
whom you
matter.
go. It doesn't matter. So we don't need to have a ghetto because that's what happened in many cities. They
Yeah.
try to put LGBT people in ghettos,
Right.
and yeah, I understand that we do have discos and pubs and so on in Gran Canaria where it's especially focused for the LGBT community. But that doesn't mean that if you're a straight person, you cannot enter into that bar, or a gay couple cannot go to a straight bar, or you know what I'm saying. It's so relaxed. The environment is so relaxed that it's this is the best definition I can find. We don't have ghettos. We don't have ghettos. Yes, we have areas where the LGBT population tends to concentrate more than other areas. Yes, but that's natural, right? It's like, when you go overseas, you tend to get together with the people who is from your same country, who speak the same language, etc., etc. But it's not because you will be punished or you will be prosecuted or you will be, harassed for being in a way or another. That's not the
Yep.
case.
So, is there a social scene for retirees in the LGBTQ community? Are there meetups? Is it easy to meet others, like
Yeah,
expats
yeah, there are
or
different groups.
locals?
Yes, there are different groups where you can join and you can meet people from the same community. But I just want to tell you that Gran Canaria is an island that is thriving culturally. So there are a lot of activities year round. From We have one of the most important opera festivals in the world happens in Gran Canaria. And also we have our own film festival that is large, popular, and well known. These are just two examples where members of the LGBT community participate and there's no problem. Quite famous is the carnival. We have the carnival in the month of February. It's a whole month of carnival
Festival.
festival. Yeah, I'm just gonna give you a story that happens to me. I was in June, like maybe this was 10 years ago or 11 years ago, and I was walking on the street and I saw maybe a group of maybe 100 people, if so, not more than 100 people, and they have the LGBT flag, the rainbow flag, right? And I was like, what is this? Right? So I went, approached them, and I asked them, what is this? What is? And they say, we are celebrating Pride. And I said, but you're only 100 people. It's like, well, it's just, we just have this manifestation, this thing, just because, it's gay pride, but we don't need to have it because we don't have any rights to ask here in the Canary Islands. We already have them, right? So normally when you go and demand something, you make a big thing and, I want these rights and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
But it was just like 100 people. And they said, well, what are we asking for? I say, what is the demand for this year? And they say, well, we are demanding peace in the world. It's like, okay, well, that's a good demand, but it's not
Yeah.
it's not directly
The
affecting
LGBT. Right.
is not particular LGBT. So that's what I'm trying to say. But yeah, we do have, demonstrations. We do have all that kind of stuff. There are organizations as a Gamma, for example. Is Gamma is a LGBT organization in Gran Canaria. They have a lot of activities. They introduce people to each other and so on. There are a lot of, for lesbians and for gays as well.
It's so refreshing, that it really doesn't matter. And do you know if anti-discrimination laws are written into
Yes,
Spain's
yes,
constitution?
yes, yes, yes. There is a very strong legislation. Just to give you an example, if you call someone, and forgive me for using this term, but if you call someone the equivalent of fagot in
Hmm.
Spanish,
Right.
maricon, to someone, they can sue you.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
yeah, as simple as that, because it's a discriminatory term. So yeah, there is a very, very anti-hate, what is called the anti-hate legislation that applies not only for people of different races, for example, or different faith or cultural backgrounds, etc., but sexual orientation as well is part of one of them. Absolutely.
Wow, that's so refreshing to have it in your constitution. And we try, so we have certain states that have written anti-discrimination laws and anti-abortion laws into their constitution here, but there are only a limited amount of states
Right.
that do that. But to have a country put that into their country, into their constitution is
Yeah,
great.
it's like I said before, the we don't call it civil unions. We call it marriage.
Yes.
It's marriage. Under the law is marriage. And for example, just to give you an example, if your
Except for
partner,
Italy.
yeah, well, Italy don't have a same-sex thing, but is what happened in Spain, for example, just to give you an example, if you're married to a person of your same sex, and you get sick and you're in the hospital, that person has exactly the same rights of visiting you and caring for you as if it was a straight couple.
Yeah.
Or even furthermore, if this person, God forbid, die or pass away, you are
Legal heir.
the legal heir because you're married to this person. So that's how it works.
Yeah. Yeah. It's right now it works that way too here for the most part.
Hmm.
Okay, great. Wonderful, wonderful LGBTQ community and culture in Gran Canaria. Let's talk about walkability and transportation. But before I forget, tell us, is Spanish a must? If an expat moves from the US, now I know you should, wherever you move, you should try to learn the language, at least somewhat, because you're now an immigrant of that country and it's the only right thing to do. But is knowing Spanish a must in Gran Canaria?
Not really. Not really. Well, it depends on the areas where you go. But a large majority of the population speak English because we work based on the tourism, right? Maybe their accent would not be the best one. And maybe they will use some words that you'll say, okay, she's trying to say this or trying to say that, but they will do their best to communicate with you. That's for sure. That's for sure. But it's like any other place, when you go to a new country, it's always
Hmm.
good or useful to learn the language of that particular country. For sure.
Of course.
That's for sure.
Okay. Let's talk about walkability and transportation. So I know mainland Spain, depending upon the city, big cities have wonderful, wonderful walkability and great transportation. They have trains but being on an island, what's that like? Is the community where you live, can you walk to the grocery store, the market? Can
Absolutely.
you
Absolutely. Okay. The one of the positive things is that the Gran Canaria has the largest amount of malls and grocery stores in relationship to population of all Spain.
Wow.
So basically, you will be able to buy groceries or a piece of clothing or shoes or whatever you may need, walking distance. There are a lot, not only in these malls, but there are a lot of small businesses that operate in the islands, and you will be able to do that. Mobility is never an issue. We have fantastic, bus system, and not only within the main city, Las Palmas de Gran Canaria, but also between the different towns. Very modern buses, as we call their wawas. That's how it's called there.
Wow.
Wawa, yeah. So we move around there. There's no problem. There is a fantastic cab service, taxi service. And just to give an example, because the cars are so cheap there. This is something that a friend of mine who went to the Canary Islands was surprised, is that the majority of the cars that are taxi are BMWs, Mercedes, and high-end kind of cars. And I
Hmm.
remember my friend asking me, "How come is that possible? I mean, how is that Mercedes is a cab?" It's like, well, because it's inexpensive. And you know what? So if you're gonna pay the same for this car and this other car, and you can get a Mercedes, probably I will get a Mercedes rather than this other car. So transportation is not an issue, and walkability is not an issue either. It's not an issue at all. If you talk about the main city, Las Palmas de Gran Canaria,
Hmm.
it's a flat city where we don't have, like mountains or high hills or things like that. So you can walk no problem whatsoever. Yeah.
Can you walk to like in a 15, 20-minute radius? Can you walk to the market, a doctor, dentist, hospital, a bank? Can you walk to all
No
of
problem
those?
whatsoever. It doesn't
Really?
matter in which part you are, you will be able to
Wow.
do that. Yes, you will. Yes,
That's refreshing.
yes.
So, being a coffee culture type place where people have their coffee and they walk, and that's why they're all skinny.
You know what? I mean, yeah, that's true. That's true. I mean, the range of obesity in the Canary Islands is really low in Gran Canaria because, we walk to many, many places. And one of the things that you have to understand is that if you remember, I told you that the island is round and we have a peninsula. The peninsula is where the main city, Las Palmas de Gran Canaria, is located. That is the capital of the island. And in the capital of the island, in this peninsula, both sides of the peninsula, you have a beach in each part of the city. So, if many, many people, what they do is like, when they finish their work day or when they want to just relax, they just go and walk by the beach. We have a wonderful pathway to go, and you just walk and relax and see and all that.
That's the
So,
life.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
What's the body of water that it's not on the Mediterranean, right?
No, it's in the
Atlantic Ocean.
Atlantic Ocean. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. That's all right. So good transportation. Of course, it's an island, so they don't have any trains
No, we don't have
like the.
trains. No, we don't have trains. They were talking or establishing a streetcar service, but that was something that was in evaluation. It hasn't been approved yet.
Okay. And I'm sure that we talked briefly about, flights and airport. Is the airport from Gran Canaria, let's say I wanted to go from Gran Canaria to Madrid.
Hmm.
Is it really inexpensive
Well,
to to
there are
fly?
two different things. Okay, if you are a permanent resident of the Canary Island,
Hmm.
the government subsides 50% of the cost of your flight.
Wow.
So if the flight is, I don't know, 200 euros, 300 euros, the government automatically will pay for you 50% of that cost.
Wow.
Yeah, because you live in an island and that will be the easiest way of
Getting
getting out. Just if you want to travel between islands, maybe it would be 50 euros or 75 euros tops. But if you're going to go to Spain, the government will subsidize 50% of the cost.
that's great.
Yeah, but you have to be a permanent resident in the Canary Islands.
Do you know if there's any more discounts in transportation in general with
Seniors,
seniors?
seniors do have discount in transportation. Yes, they do. There has a special kind of issue thing where they will get a discount. Now, actually, there is a policy where all the transportation within the city of Las Palmas de Gran Canaria is absolutely free. You take any
Wow.
bus and it's absolutely free. This is a
For
measure.
seniors or for
No,
everyone?
everyone.
Wow.
So I don't know for how long this measure is going to be in place because it doesn't exclusively depend on the government of Gran Canaria, because this is something that comes from the government of Spain. But right now, this is happening at this particular stage. It's absolutely free.
Wow. Yeah, I know also for seniors, I know Spain takes care of their seniors
We
in
do,
many ways.
we do, we do. It's because it's one of the things that I have noticed when I travel some places is that when people get older, they have get your juices, your brain and all that kind of stuff. They almost see you as a second class citizen, if you know what I'm trying to say.
Right.
It's part of our culture to take care of our seniors,
Of honoring.
of your father or your grandfather or whatever it is, right? So it's inbuilt in us. It's that's the way it works.
Yeah,
That's the way it works for us. So there is no discussion about it. I
that's
mean,
great.
you have to understand we are a very much family oriented
Yes.
culture
Yes.
where families get together every Sunday. We have a joke kind of thing where we say how you divide the weekend. And we say that Fridays is for your boyfriend or girlfriend, Saturdays is for your friends, and Sunday is for your family.
Family.
That's how it works. It's not a rule, obviously,
Right, but most people do that.
but most people do that. Yes,
I think that's great. That's great. All right, healthcare and medical services. So we briefly touched upon that. There's the public and the private. How do expats access it? So I know on mainland Spain, if you're a resident, if you become a resident, I think you must have private insurance for a year to
that's
get a
right.
visa.
That's right.
And then after the year, you're entitled, or it might be even sooner than that. You
It's
still
six
have to
months.
have, then you can go on to the public.
That's right. That's right.
But also, as being an expat, since you haven't been paying into the social security system, pension system of Spain, that there is a fee for the public system as well if you're under 65, and then it almost doubles when you're over 65.
What happened is that when you move to the Canary Islands or Gran Canaria, any place in Spain for that matter, you do have to have a private insurance. Okay. And that is exactly the same thing that happened when I moved to Canada. For the first time, for the
Right,
beginning, you do have to have your own private insurance
right,
because what had happened in the past is there were some people who were really sick, really ill, and tried to take advantage of the public system.
hmm,
So basically, they went there, have a major heart surgery, just to give an example, right? And the government will have to pay for that, right?
right,
So the government tried to avoid that kind of situation where at the beginning you do need to have your own private
private.
insurance. And then with the time, you can access, as a permanent resident, you can access to have a public system health insurance. Yes, you can.
Hmm.
Like any other. What I just want to say is that the moment you become a permanent resident, you are like any other Spaniard. That's how it works.
Yes, but I know that in the public system, if you're a resident, I know if you're an expat and haven't been paid into your system, then I think the government charges, I think something like 150 something euros per month if you're over 65. I think it's $75 if you're under 65.
Yeah, what happened is that it will depend if you had paid any pension plan, any pension in Spain
Right,
or not. So some people, what they do is they go there, they have their own private insurance, but they open their own company. So they pay their taxes for the company for a year. So since you are already paying to the social system, then later when you retire officially there, you don't have to make that payment. So it's a little trick
Right,
on the side.
right. You have to have a job
You have
and
to have a job. Yeah,
bring in money. That's
exactly.
understandable.
Yeah, yeah. And then, you will be able to have me, myself, for example, as a Spanish citizen, I do have free completely healthcare.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's great. How about are there English speaking doctors in the
Yes. Oh,
hospitals or
absolutely.
otherwise?
Absolutely. There are actually hospitals that are completely in English.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah. Both
Wow.
in Gran Canaria in the capital and both in the south. And in the ones that are in the south, not only in English, but many, many doctors, especially the ones that work in the south of the island, many of them speak German or Dutch or Finnish or other languages because the tourism, right? But
Yes.
English is very common for doctors.
Wow. Yeah, it's other parts of Spain, not so much.
Not so
So,
much, no, 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 no. But
yeah,
but you have to understand, we live. One of the main income of the Canary Islands is tourism.
tourism.
So, and
Everybody knows English from hotels and
exactly, and interesting enough, Gran Canaria, the main focus of tourism is tourism from outside of Spain.
mhm.
Tenerife, which is another island on the Canary Islands, the main focus of tourism is from Spain. There's a I
That's
cannot tell.
interesting.
It's interesting, but that's how it works. That's the reason why in Gran Canaria people speak more English than in Tenerife. And also, the people of Spain tend to go to the Balearic Island because it's closer to Spain. A trip to Palma de Mallorca from Madrid will be 1 hour.
Oh, okay.
And it's, of course, more convenient for them rather than going to the Canary Islands, which is 3 hour flight.
Right. Got it. Okay, that's good. English speaking doctors. And the process of getting retirees getting on health insurance is when that's one of the requirements for a visa. So before you come, you have to establish your health
That's right.
insurance.
That's right. You need to prove that you have a health
Health
insurance. Yes, that's
insurance.
correct.
Okay.
Yes. I just want to say that there are many, 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 many different options, many different companies. So you are not
Yeah.
tied to one particular company, or the government tells you have to have this company or that company or whatever it is.
Yeah.
A lot of different companies, so you can choose and pick whichever is the one that adequates more
Best
to
fits
your
you.
needs. Yes, that's right.
Got it. Okay. Let's talk about my favorite subject, food.
Oh my God.
Food and dining. How's the dining situation in Gran Canaria? Are there a lot of restaurants? I know it caters to
tons
tourists.
tons of
So,
restaurants,
do you
tons
have
of different.
Michelin starred restaurants?
We do. Not only that, but the cuisine is very, very varied. We have cuisines from, of course, Spanish cuisine from the Canary Islands, typical from the Canary Islands, and cuisine
What is
from,
cuisine from the Canary Islands? What is
wow,
that like?
oh my God, okay. We are an island, so we have a lot of fish, a lot of
A
seafood,
lot of fish.
and many restaurants actually they have the menu. But then when you go to the restaurant, they say, this is the menu, but our fisherman got us today this. So this is completely fresh. Would you like
Wow.
to try that? So on top of the regular menu, they have extra items on the menu that are just fresh, just came from the water, like, a couple of hours ago. Also, we have a lot of veggies. And in terms of meat, the main three meats that we have is beef, pork, and goat. There's a lot of goat.
I like goat cheese.
Yeah, it's really yummy actually. The cheeses, oh my God, you just touched my favorite subject, cheeses.
With a little wine, cheese.
Wow, oh my God. And wine, we actually, just to give you an example of how important is the wine in the Canary Islands, that even William Shakespeare, in one of his novels, speak about the wine Malvasia, which is from the Canary Islands, as
Wow.
being the best wine in the world. So also another thing that I want to mention is that Canary Islands is huge producer of tropical fruits. We are the main exporter of bananas, pineapples, papaya, kiwi, avocados to
Mm.
Europe. In fact, there is a wharf in London, England, called the Canary Wharf. And the reason for that is because the ships from the Canary Islands, full of veggies and full of fruit, will go to that wharf in London to supply, the people from the UK. Famous, very famous are the avocados, and very famous also are the tomatoes. The tomatoes are not regular tomatoes, are tomatoes, like big tomatoes. And potatoes. We have our own special category of potatoes. That normally the potatoes we take it with a special sauce, but you can have the potatoes obviously with anything, right? So yeah. There is a lot of different kind of food, and there has been several important and well-known chefs that had been in the Canary Islands who said that is probably one of the most complete cuisines in the world in terms
Wow.
of the variety of things you can have desserts and cheeses. And in Gran Canaria, we have over 15 different kinds of cheeses, and you have to understand this is an island that is a little over 70 kilometers in diameter, which is very small. It's very small,
Hmm.
and you have 15 different kinds of cheeses. Just to
And
give
you
an
grow your
example,
own wine?
you can have your own wine if you want. Yes, absolutely.
Do you grow your own? Do you have wine that's grown there?
Yes, we do. Yes, we
And
do.
so, like I know on the mainland, wine could be cheaper than water.
Yeah, and the same thing in the Canary Islands.
Same thing.
Hmm.
Okay.
Because we produce our own wine. Even if you want to have wine that is not from the Canary Islands but comes from the mainland, it's
Cheap.
very very inexpensive. The same with beer. We have two main huge factories of beer, local beer, so it's very inexpensive. Very inexpensive. Yeah.
Wow. Mm. My favorite topic to discuss is food. Always is, always will be. But anyway, let's get into arts, culture, and entertainment. That's your specialty.
Yeah. Well, like I said, we have in Europe one of the most important opera festivals in the world. Also a film festival that is very well known. We have tons of museums. You have to understand that one of the main characteristics, not only of the Canary Islands, but of Spain, is culture. We are a country that we are an old country. And, it's very interesting to see, that you have buildings that are like 600, 700 years old. And
Yeah.
it's like nothing. The cathedral is 500 years old and it's there and it's standing there. You know, So it's very interesting because sometimes you see tourists, how they are amazed that we have structures that are like 700 years old. It's like, well, hello, yes.
Yeah. It's still standing too.
It's part of our culture. It's the same thing
Yeah.
if you go to Madrid. You may have buildings that are 1,000 years old, and
Yeah.
it,
It's
it, it,
incredible.
it's part of who we are and what we are. But you know what is very interesting because when you grow up seeing those things every day, right? When you go to school, when you take the bus or whatever it is. So for you, it's part of your life. It's like,
It's
okay,
nothing.
sure, whatever, right? But then it's very interesting because you see tourists, taking pictures in front of these monuments, in front of maybe a house that is, maybe 200 years old,
Right.
and they are like, wow, this is so old. It's like, and you say, but it's only 200. Go to this one that is 700. It's like
Right. Yeah. And here in the US, nothing is old.
nothing is old. Yeah, it's the same thing that
I
happened
mean,
in
they're
there.
old, but
Yeah,
not
yeah,
as
yeah, yeah,
not
yeah.
old like, a
No,
couple of
no,
hundred
not as
years.
much. No, no, no. I understand that. I understand that. And throughout ambience, there is a lot of cinemas. There are a lot of activities. Tons of museums. One of the things that we have, for example, there that is worth visiting is the house of Christopher Columbus.
Mhm.
Christopher Columbus had a house in Gran Canaria, and that's where he used to stay between his trips, from Spain to America, America to Spain. He will stay in that house, so it's his house, and it's kept the way he used to have his house. Now it's a museum,
Hmm.
And yeah, so it's, and we have the old part of the city called Vegeta, which is a fascinating place to visit. I mean, they have spent large amount of money in illuminating and putting the light installations and all that kind of stuff to create the ambience of how was the city like 600, 700 years ago. So it's fascinating. It's really
I could imagine.
it it it's yeah, it's really
And you
cool.
wouldn't get bored living there with all
You
the culture.
you know what? No, I sometimes I have to say, okay, I'm going to take one day off of doing anything and just stay, in my sister house or in a hotel, just relaxing because you want to do things every day.
Hmm.
And if you don't want to do any cultural activities, just walk the streets. The streets are walkable. And if you don't like to walk, go
And
to
it's
the
safe.
beach. Go have a coffee.
And it's safe.
It's safe. That's the most important thing. It's a safe environment.
You're not looking over your shoulder.
No, that's the thing. That's what I'm trying to say. Is I mean, one of the things that you, for example, have to understand, just to give you, about cleanness. Okay. If you have a dog, okay, let's say that you have a dog in Gran Canaria and you walk your dog on the street and your dog pee or poo, right? Of
Mhm.
course, you have to clean up after the dog. You pick up the poo, throw it to the garbage, but then you also have to clean the pee. So,
Really?
yeah, you do. It's mandatory by law. So you
Wow.
have to have with you a bottle that has some water and a small little amount of bleach, a small amount, and you put it on top of the pee so the city doesn't smell.
Wow.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, it's very convenient. I mean, you know what? So the city doesn't smell because
But
you know that.
I heard Europe is, I don't know if it's Portugal that I heard this or Spain, mainland Spain, that people don't pick up poop from
Well,
their dog.
this is something that this is true in certain areas of, especially Portugal. It's not within their way of being. And many, 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 many years ago, Spain was the same way. Now the problem is that, well, not the problem. The good thing though is that the government, the police will give you such a healthy ticket
Hmm.
that you better clean after your dog. So, yes.
I love that idea with the bleach for
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
pee.
it's a small amount of bleach because you cannot put a lot of bleach because
Right.
it will
It's
create a
toxic.
problem. It's toxic, right? But you have to put water and a small amount of bleach. You walk your dog and then you spray that so it doesn't smell and it cleans the facade of the building or the sidewalk or whatever then they
I
do.
love that idea. I love that. Okay. So great arts and culture and safety and crime. So I'm assuming the LGBTQ community has no issues with safety
No,
as the regular community. There are no guns allowed in Spain,
no,
so nobody's shooting one another.
no.
So it's you could walk out at 2 in the morning and not from a restaurant or a bar and not feel
You don't feel threatened.
threatened at all.
No, I mean, I was living there for 20 years until I went to the university, and I go there every year several times, and I spend there for a while time. I have to say I have never had any problem. Never.
Boy,
Never. I
that's
had
different.
nothing was ever stolen or nothing. Nothing, 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 nothing. Nothing at all.
That means a lot because coming from the US, now these days, between the gun culture in the US, we have to look over our shoulders if we're in the supermarket
I hear you.
to see if there's any crazy people
Right, I hear you. No,
around.
we don't have any problem. I'm not gonna say that everything is perfect because there is no such a thing as perfect. Of course, there may be some neighborhoods that are a little more conflicted than others. There are some areas where there may be drugs, like any
Yeah.
other city in the world. I mean, I'm not saying we are perfect. I'm not saying that we have the most iconic place in the world, But overall, trust me, I have been lucky enough to be in 27 different countries around the world.
Wow.
And each time, I always say, hey, can I see myself living here? Can I see myself, when I retire? Because, I still have 9 more years, but I'm thinking about retirement, right? And my
Hmm.
investments and how to do, what to buy a house, blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. And I'm telling you the truth. I don't have that fear. I'm just want to retire. I wish I could retire sooner. I'm telling you the truth because I really want to go to the Canary Islands, Gran Canaria, to live there. Not only because I have friends and family, obviously, which is a big asset for me, but because the way of life. I mean, I left the Canary Islands not because I wanted to leave the Canary Islands. I was forced to leave the Canary Islands because of the business that I'm involved. That was the right decision to do at that time. And at that time, I had to go to Madrid. But now, for example, we have in the island of Gran Canaria, only in the island of Gran Canaria, we have 4 universities, just to give you an example,
Mm.
one public and 3 private. So that gives you an idea of what I'm trying to say. It's like I said, nothing is perfect. You know,
Right.
this
And I'm sure there's petty crime
well,
because it's touristy.
everywhere
Right.
is petty crime. There is. You know what I'm
Pickpocket.
saying? Yeah, but it's not the norm. That's what
Right.
I'm trying to say. It's not something that when I go to Toronto, and Toronto is a very safe city in Canada, right? Hey, I try to hide things in the trunk of the car. I try to, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Hmm.
It's a different mentality. And of course, you have to take precautions and be careful where you go, how you do, and all that kind of stuff. But in a regular daily basis, no,
You don't
no,
feel threatened at all.
you don't feel threatened. No, it doesn't matter if you are a member of the LGBT community or not. You don't
Oh
feel
no.
threatened at all.
That's wonderful. Definitely wonderful. Okay. Final thoughts and advice. What advice would you give to our LGBTQ retiree listeners considering a move to Gran Canaria?
Well, I always will advise them to visit first the island before you retire. This is what I did when I moved to Canada. Before I moved to Canada, I came to Toronto, to Montreal, to Ottawa, and Vancouver to see the country. And go there, go with an open mind. Forget that you are in a hurry. This is something that I just want to say because in North America culture we are very familiar with I need this now, pam, and
Yes. It's
when the
instant.
waiters, yeah, is that when the waiters takes more than 2 seconds to
Oh,
come,
yeah. Where's my dinner?
where is okay, what's going on? What don't you pay attention to me? So I mean, there we have a different way of life where everything takes time. We are not in a rush.
You have to be patient.
You have to be patient. And we say, we have an expression that says that if you run too fast, you fall into the water. It's an island, right? So you fall into the
Hmm.
water. So basically, this is what I would recommend. Know the island, know, rent a car. They are not expensive. Rent a car if you want to have your own freedom on your own time frame. Visit different places, visit different towns, different parts, and speak with the people. Speak there and see how it is. And more importantly, have clear what you want. There are some tourists that like to have the city vibe, if you wish, and
Hmm.
wants to live in the city. And there are some tourists that what they want is just beach, so they move to the south of the city of the island, sorry, where they will be able to go to the beach all year round. I mean, you can
Hmm.
also go year round in the city in the city, but you have warmer weather in the south. That's what I'm trying to say. So, there are, for example, a lot of marketplace. Every town have their own market, public market, where you can go from buying veggies to buying, shoes, to buy a leather something. You know what I mean? So,
Hmm.
all these things, are important. And visit, understand, and be with an open mentality. And with patience, because we are not in a rush for
Right.
anything at all. That's my
Got it.
advice for them.
Got it. Great advice. And if someone visited for the first time, is there a must see or must
Oh,
do thing?
absolutely, absolutely.
What's the one thing that stands out that you must see?
Okay, you must visit the sand dunes. They are in the south of the island. You must
What goes
visit,
on there?
yeah, the sand dunes is the whole part of the south of the island is the virgin sand dunes. It's kilometers and kilometers of sand dunes,
Wow.
wonderful beaches. Then, if you want to see a traditional town, go to the center, go to a place called Terror. Or if you want to see the old city, go to Vegeta in the capital city. We have natural swimming pools, like because it's a volcanic island, there are natural swimming pools that are created because, when the lava reaches the water, they make like these big bubbles that, they are natural swimming pools.
Hmm.
So, and try the gastronomy, you will be surprised, by the gastronomy, because you may say, well, it's an island, it's only fish. No, it's fish. Minority is fish, but there are a lot of different things that you can try. You can try a lot of many different things for sure.
I'm sure. And when you mentioned the city, are you talking about Las Palmas and Maspalomas?
No, Las Palmas de Gran Canaria is the capital city. Maspalomas is in the south.
Okay.
It's a different city.
Okay.
Maspaloma is a different city that is in the south. There where is the largest population of tourism.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. So if you can sum up life in Gran Canaria in just a few words, what would it be?
Looking forward to moving back.
Yay.
That will be my summary of my hope. Looking forward to move back.
I'm sure it will happen.
Oh, it will happen. I don't have any doubt about it. When I moved to Canada, I said, well, this is my temporary home, but my final home and destination will be the Gran Canaria, and that's what it's going to be. And I'm planning my future accordingly to that particular goal. That's for sure. I just want to use this media that you are offering me, Mark, to say to the people, go visit. You will be surprised of what you will see there. You will find an amazing community. You will find an open mind people, and bring summer clothing because that's what you will find. I always advise to bring a jacket because at night, if you go by the beach,
Gets a
it's
little
always a
chilly.
little chilly. But that's all. Bring summer clothing and enjoy the island. Enjoy the island to the full extent. You
Sounds
know.
like my type of place. I'm going to
Thank you.
have to brush up on my Spanish because, in fact, a friend put something into my brain, planted a seed. Oh, we need to go to Spain in the fall, and I'm like, oh, okay.
I just have to say, Mark, if you decide to visit Gran Canaria
Hmm.
or any of the Canary Islands, please reach out to me, and I will be sure to organize a good tour for you to visit the island and tell you where to go, where not to go, and what food to have, and where restaurants and places to go, and all that kind of stuff.
Great. Thank you, Raquel. And
My
thank you so
pleasure.
much for your insights on Gran Canaria to our listeners in the podcast. It's been really educational. I loved talking to you. I think we kind of hit it off, and
Thank you.
I hope to talk to you again. So let's definitely keep in touch. And if our listeners have any questions and they reach out to me, do you mind if I get back to
Please,
you? And
absolutely, it will be my pleasure to do so.
okay,
I will
that's
be happy to
wonderful.
help anyone who is interested in Gran Canaria.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you,
You,
everyone. Thank you for listening.
thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.